Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another WM32 Football Podcast episode. And today it's myself and Nelson, who has just waved to you all. We are going to be covering the groundbreaking deal that happened yesterday for women's football. So for those of you that missed it, or in case you missed it or have not seen it, women's football, the WSL, the Women's Super League here in England, will now be shown live on Sky Sports and the BBC as of September. So that will come into play for next season. So Nelson, as I mentioned, a really, really big deal here for the game, women's football, especially in this country. Just run us through a little bit more on the details of what was announced yesterday.
No worries. Thank you, Wes. Great for everyone to be here. A game-changing, revolutionary deal in my eyes with this deal. So from the beginning of September 2021, so the 2021-2022 season, Sky Sports will show at least 35 Women's Premier League, Super League games exclusively live. I think BT around 20 games that they will be shown live. But again, a groundbreaking deal, which is roughly £8 million per season, this deal. So this is amazing since obviously, would you believe that 10 years ago, actually, April 2011 was the inaugural WSL season, which began with just 8 teams played throughout the summer. So this is a completely game-changing thing. So those are some of the details on this groundbreaking deal.
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Nelson. And obviously with the money now, the finances that are going to come into play, you with your finance hat on, literally, what do you feel like the impact of this deal is going to have on not only clubs, say in the WSL, but those in the Women's Championship as well? Because I do believe that they, within this deal, that some games from that particular division will also be shown maybe on Sky Sports or the BBC as well. So just with your finance hat on, how do you think this is going to impact the clubs financially, like I say, from the top league and the Championship as well?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we look at men's football, for instance, today, and one of the commercial streams, one of the streams of income for revenue comes from broadcasting, and we know how big that is within men's football and the commitment that broadcasters have. I think this impact is huge on clubs. I think it's this is now another source of revenue for clubs, as well as the match day that they would have got pre-COVID as well. So this is amazing in the sense that now the women's football, there is a commitment from broadcasters to be able to show these games, like I said, exclusively live on one of the biggest broadcasting channels ever to do football, which is obviously Sky Sports, as well as BBC. So for clubs, this is great, as well as Championship. That's a lot more exposure for teams in the Championship as well. Not just the Women's Super League, but you've got the Championship also. So I think that gives a platform for a lot more coverage to be done on a sport, especially in the women's side, that hasn't got a lot of love. Like I said, it started in April 2011, and just to see that slowly rise and see it now come to the point where we have this deal being announced is, for me, it's amazing, absolutely amazing. I wanted to get your thoughts. What do you think in regards to this deal, the impact that it will have on the clubs?
I think it will be absolutely fantastic. And it was kind of leading on to my next point that I was going to ask you, actually, but I feel like it's going to safeguard not only some of the clubs, because not all of them that compete in the WSL and the Championship are affiliated with a men's team, or, the women's team is at perhaps a higher level than what the men's team are. So I feel like, this particular deal is obviously fantastic for women's football. I think the last World Cup, we saw a massive boom in terms of TV audiences as well, and whatnot. Record-breaking numbers for some games in there. But I feel like as well, it might even help safeguard some player futures. I think we've seen a lot of changes within women's football in terms of player movement, because I think clubs can only really offer them maybe 1-2 year deals, 2 year contracts. So, there's that having to keep re-signing nearly every year or every couple of years, whereas now clubs might be able to sustain longer contracts for longer periods of time, having known that they're getting some form of TV money and broadcasting money coming in. Obviously, as you mentioned, in the men's game, it's probably one of the more powerful revenue streams. So to be able to get something in the women's game, obviously it's not the big numbers in terms of the men's game, but it is something, and it's a start, I think, for women's football, certainly in this country. And yeah, I mean, as you said as well, the rise of women's football, certainly since 2011, but even as I mentioned after that, the recent World Cup has just been fantastic. Obviously, from an England perspective, we are hosting the Women's Euros, which I believe which was due to be this summer, but because of COVID, it's been put back a year, unfortunately. So, I mean, again, to have that, we're hoping that it will inspire young girls up and down the country to get involved and play football. I know I'm really excited for it as well, because my hometown, my home city of Milton Keynes is one of the host stadiums. So provided that the work schedule allows it, I will certainly be trying to get to watch a couple of games, because I think it's just brilliant. It's just so uplifting. Obviously, women within sport have it tough in terms of trying to get themselves noticed a lot of the time, when actually they do know their stuff. And women can play football just as good as men, but it doesn't, the perception isn't always the same. So I feel like, but having this particular deal now, Sky Sports, as you mentioned, one of the biggest sports broadcasters, certainly in this country, now buying into women's football and making that commitment to women's football, I think is going to be huge. Obviously, we had the sponsorship with Barclays a couple of seasons ago as well. So again, you're getting that commitment now from sponsors, having seen the value proposition, I think, of the sport in terms of women's football. So yeah, no, I think it's fantastic, and hopefully, again, we might see more teams becoming professional as well. Obviously, the majority of, I believe, if not all of the WSL are professional, and there's a couple of clubs as well in the championship. But when I look at that particular division, you can see almost the difference in the teams that are full-time and professional and those that aren't, because usually those that are at the top end, and unfortunately for the ones that aren't, they are down the bottom. And do you echo that? Do you see potentially more strength in depth now in the women's game off the back of this particular deal?
100%. Absolutely 100%. I do see an improvement coming along. I just don't. The trajectory, I don't think, is ever going to go down. I think it's going to continue to rise, especially with women's football. So I do see a strength, an improvement in teams. I do hope as well that there is going to be an expansion of the amount of teams that will be able to participate in leagues, because obviously we currently have 12. But I do see it getting to a point where it's like the men's football, and you have 20 teams and they play each other twice this season. I think that, again, would completely raise the profile of the league. So this is something that I'm really happy to see. And yeah, I completely echo what you said, the improvement in strength.
Yeah, no, brilliant. I think as well, Nelson, now just moving on to almost role models within the women's game. Do you potentially see that they are going to be more role models for young girls, that are looking now at this and, potentially wanting to get into football, or they play football but don't necessarily have the role models there? Do you now see, off the back of this particular deal and the exposure that the league is going to get, more role models for young girls that, like I say, wanting to get involved or are involved in football?
Completely. I think that's one of the reasons why I think you could see why. But I don't know what went in behind Sky wanting to invest more and make a commitment to obviously broadcasting the Women's Super League. But you can't help but look at one of the really main important factors is that this is gonna like inspire a lot of young girls. A lot of young girls. You mentioned really well the World Cup and the amount of viewers that watched that World Cup, and I think this is only going to increase participation. I think participation increased from that World Cup, and I just see the numbers going up. I know you will obviously expand on yourself and you actually coaching a number of young female players, but that in itself, like now you can have players that are going to see they're going to see their favorites pop up and they'll be like, I want to be like her. I want to be like her. I want to be like her. And that is really empowering. It's really empowering to see that, these young girls can now look up and see on the TV and be like, yeah, do you know what? I'm going to get home, watch the exclusive like 4:30 kickoff for WSL, like that kind of conversation, that kind of, in our everyday is like, I can see that happening within, like in general between men and women, but especially for women, just to be like, yeah, this is definitely going to change a lot of childhoods. Because I think one thing that I read on the article was that Steph Houghton, she mentioned that she wanted the increase in profile. She said it was going to raise the profile of the game, of the players. She said she wanted the players to be under that spotlight and have the same scrutiny as the men's. But she mentioned that individual performances will also be highlighted. So this is where now I think not just only inspire young girls across the country, but I think their knowledge of the game will also improve by just sitting there watching, and the analysis that's now going to be put in. Actually, like you mentioned, now we have a lot of female pundits coming through. We have Karen Kearney, Alex Scott. These are a number that are on high profile broadcasting channels, like actually giving their analysis on the men's game. And that in itself, I think, will just really help young women, like really, I guess it will just kind of increase the passion that they already have, for the game, on top of, them just watching it because they love the sport. So yeah, that's all I kind of have to say right now on that, I think. But I'll let you expand on yourself. What do you think regarding, the impacts on young girls today?
Yeah, I think in terms of the role models, you mentioned there obviously about the female pundits covering the men's game. And, some of them are actually really, really knowledgeable, but they get so much stick, and it's like, well, hold on a minute, they make probably better points than some of the male pundits.
Exactly.
When they're covering certain games. But I think now, as you said, they're going to really channel that passion, that energy into women's football. And I don't think they will be as scrutinized as much as they potentially are when covering a men's game, because it's like, well, they're kind of covering their own thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
They're covering their own sport in a way. Obviously, we know it's football and it shouldn't really be men's and women's, but obviously perception is that it is very, very split at the moment. But I think now with Sky bringing the money, the finances into the leagues and whatnot, you're almost going to see the playing field trying to be leveled off a little bit. Obviously, majority of women's Super League games and Championship games at the moment are played on Sundays. With the men's game, obviously we know Super Sunday kind of dominates that at the moment. So we might almost have it side by side, or they might allocate different slots for women's games and as opposed to men's games. So a lot more people now might get better educated by watching women's football should they choose to do so. But I think in terms, again, the role models for players, this is brilliant. I coach a few young girls as well at the moment, on a more individual basis. And it's almost like now I have a reference point for them to know if I'm working with a centre forward, and it's like, you could be the next Fran Kirby, for example, or if I'm working with a defender, they might be the next Steph Houghton or Leah Williamson or whatnot. Players, if they're wingers, they can be the next Lauren James or Chloe Williams or something like that. So all of a sudden, they've got people that they can latch onto. The same with if I'm coaching boys, and it's like centre forward, you could be the next Harry Kane or something like that. So all of a sudden these conversations now are becoming a bit more of the norm. And it's fantastic, I think, in terms of bringing the women's game to that next level, bringing it to light, and giving it the exposure that it really needs, because I think it's all good people talking about the rise of women's football and everything like that, but it's actually taken the likes of Barclays to sponsor the league, now with Sky and BBC having a real commitment to showing live games. They're now investing in it, as I mentioned earlier. And I don't know too much about women's football, I must admit, but obviously I'm kind of learning on the job kind of thing. But now it's given me that platform now to start to become a bit more invested in it, just by being on Sky and BBC. And if you have got a dodgy kind of men's game that you wouldn't really want to watch, you might actually switch over now and watch a women's game, because chances are it's more than likely to be live on TV, I think.
No, completely agree. I'm hoping to the point where, like I mentioned, like if I forget about the men's football, it's just like, okay, I'm coming home to watch like this live game that's a women's football game, instead of saying, you know what, this men's game is dead, let me just revert back to that. Because it comes to a point where I actually want to, I think this is a testament to, you mentioned, Barclays and other sponsors coming in to invest in it. I think this is a testament to the players out there continuing to perform at a really high level of quality. Like if you compare it to other leagues around the world, like I would consider WSL to be probably one of the best 3 leagues in the world. Obviously, we've had our debate off the record regarding, which leagues are the best, but WSL is definitely up there, top 3. So this is a testament to the players kind of like performing. We know it's not as fast paced as the men's game, but the quality is still there. Like these are players who are professional, they understand the game, and they're able to put on the performance. And I think that's what sponsors have now seen, to be able to make that commitment. I don't think you wouldn't place that, investment unless the quality wasn't there. So yeah, that's a testament to the players.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And actually, I was at the women's North London derby last season at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, which saw a record crowd of almost 40,000 for at that particular game. And I mean, the day itself, it was very, I think women's football has got this family orientated kind of vibe and feel to it, which is really, really good, in terms of your match day experience. It is all about being inclusive and almost having the family there. Ticket prices were fairly cheap as well, so it is that, okay, if you can't go to watch the men's team play, if your club has one, that is, come and watch us. We're just as good in terms, as you mentioned, in terms of a standard, but prices aren't exactly astronomical. I think a family of 4 could have gone for like £20 or something, which is really, really good. And the only kind of downside, I think, from that particular day, and I don't know if this is me just being me or what I'm used to watching men's football, but you did have some Arsenal fans in the Tottenham end, and it was kind of like sitting side by side, and I was a bit like, hold on a minute, this is Derby Day. Like, I don't know if I was expecting a similar vibe to perhaps a Tottenham Arsenal game in the men's, like obviously the men's Premier League, but it just felt a little bit strange. But I guess women's football has to start from somewhere. Obviously they had that massive hiatus way back when women were banned from playing football, and now to see where the women's game is, and where it could potentially go now with this deal, I think is really, really exciting. For those that work in the women's game, for those that have even played, and generations that have gone before, it's like those are almost the trailblazers. They've paved the way for this to happen, and I think you were spot on in terms of the fact that the quality has to be there for sponsors to invest, and it's testament to players that are playing in the women's version of football, that that sponsors are now looking at it going, this is a viable product, because that's how companies view most things, really. It's a viable product, viable branding, and now they're
Yeah.
hopefully going to elevate it and take it to that next level. So yeah, no, spot on, I think, with that, Nelson. And obviously as well, I think the clubs in the English performance, shall we say, in the Champions League has been really, really good, especially over the last few years. Obviously City have been up there, in and around Chelsea as well. So English clubs have been doing really, really well in that respect. So I think that is potentially, again, another reason why sponsors have come in and looked at it. But yeah, and then obviously you've got clubs such as Man United coming up and looking to challenge, I think, the likes of Chelsea, Arsenal and City towards the top end of the league.
Yeah.
So hopefully, the league will become a bit more competitive, and we get, almost similarly a top six in the women's league to potentially what we've got in the men's. So I think, like you said, it's really, really exciting time for women's football, and just hopefully it can continue.
100%. Another thing that just came to mind as you were speaking and expanding upon the point, I think I had mentioned obviously a couple of examples in terms of punditry, and Alex Scott and Karen Kenny also giving their opinions on the men's game. But one positive I think that this brings is the opportunity for Sky now, or BBC, when they are doing coverage of these Women's Super League games, is actually have an all women's panel, like across the board, a women's host. You got even people working behind the scenes in production, all of this, just all women. Like, I think that is an empowering, like a big statement out there. So I wanted to get your thoughts. Do you think that's something that these broadcasters should try and do, moving forward? Like, because it creates obviously more job opportunities for a woman to come in and now be part of, the sporting landscape. What's your view on this?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Obviously, you'd hope that when it comes to things such as, broadcasting and punditry productions and all of those kind of things, you would hope it's the best person for the job, essentially.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
I think as well, the value of having, say, an all-female panel would be so powerful, because there might be girls watching that potentially may not want to go into football, but they're kind of just playing it at the minute to play with their friends. They might want to become a TV presenter. So if they see that female there, whether that's a Gabby Logan, for example, that's doing the BBC ones, or a Kelly Summers, for example, a Reshmin Chowdhury, somebody like that. Again, it's all about those role models, and for girls and women to have that there, I think, again, will be very, very powerful, because they can aspire to be somebody that's on TV, and then they might have conversations with mum and dad about oh, mum, dad, I want to be like that person there. I want to be the next Kelly Summers or Reshmin Chowdhury on TV. I want to present. How do I do it? And then mum and dad might have a chat with them and say about how they can do that. But no, certainly I do see the value and the power of having that all female panel and stuff. And I think as well, you touched on analysis earlier. I think that will be key. I think it'll actually be quite eye-opening for a lot of people, because obviously women are built slightly differently than men, so we might actually get a bit more insight into the way almost the female body works from a sporting context than we do from the male pundits. But then half the time the male pundits don't know what they're on about. So yeah, hopefully again, I think with that insight almost into what might potentially be happening, from those that have recently perhaps just played the game or have played the game. Again, getting that insight, I think, will be eye-opening, and I think it will be invaluable as well, because for coaches that do coach girls or women's teams, there are subtle differences between the two, in terms of comparing it to the boys' game. But yeah, I think it's about kind of understanding those differences as well. And I think obviously if you getting those female pundits on there, then I think we might understand it a little bit better than what we do currently. But I think as well, obviously, if Sky is showing it, more than likely going to have highlights as well on Sky Sports News throughout the day, which most people in sport tune into and watch. So again, I think that will be massive in terms of the exposure for the game. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that or get your thoughts on the women female panels.
Yeah, I think it's been a breath of fresh air, especially because I know I'm an Arsenal fan, and seeing Alex Scott there, she was that Arsenal team that she was part of. That was like my introduction to women's football as a young boy. Like seeing the likes of Kelly Smith, her, Rachel Yankee, all these ballers coming through, and I'm like, wow. I mean, obviously Arsenal was so dominant back then, but it was my introduction to see how women play, and I really like I mentioned about investors, investing because of the quality. Like I saw quality back then, and I don't think that's disappeared completely. Obviously, it's had its ups and downs, but it's still remained there. Now it's going even further up. So, like you said, it would be so empowering, such a big statement to have an all-female panel out there with diversity, because we haven't even touched on the fact that now, not just in terms of broadcasting matches, but there's actually shows out there investing in women's football, and we, myself and you, probably yourself more, we obviously paid attention to Ultimate Goal, the TV series, which gave a platform to females to come in and potentially get that professional contract there. So it's just a big plus, like not just seeing it via matches and analysis and coverage. It's accessible everywhere. So yeah, I'm glad. But Ultimate Goal, I'll let you explain a bit more regarding that, and how that kind of came about, and the importance of that, really. I guess the importance of that show as well.
Yeah, so for those that did miss it, firstly, you missed an unbelievably great series, not only for women's football, but for football in general. You missed a great series. So if anybody remembers the Football Icon or Football's Next Star type shows that were on Sky One, and you had so a squad, if you like, of players that were at, I think with Football Icon it was Chelsea, Football's Next Star was Inter Milan, and they would train with the hope of signing a professional contract for either Chelsea or Inter, depending on which one it was. Ultimate Goal was something a little bit similar to that. It was almost like the women's version of it, if you like. It was held at St George's Park, and there was a squad of, I think it was about 30 girls that trained at St George's Park. Had the likes of Rosa, Millie, Kamita, you had Rachel Brown-Finnis, Eni Aluko, all on the coaching staff there. They had little masterclasses, so ex-pros or even certain pros that are still playing now. You had Jill Scott, Farrah Williams, Peter Crouch, Jens Lehmann all coming in, Freddie Ljungberg, another one that came in and done little masterclasses. And I think it was 2 weeks. It was pretty intense in terms of the actual show. I mean, the show itself lasted about 6 weeks, but I think in total it was around a 2 week training camp. And at the end of it, the girls ended up playing Birmingham City. I think they played a development squad there with the hope of, again, signing a contract either with a professional club or with a sports agency. And I absolutely loved it. It was one of those things that, I think I was messaging you going, ultimate goals on tonight. It was literally part of my weekly routine. And I think I was probably invested in it a bit more personally. I knew some of the girls in there, Amber Taylor, who was one of the goalkeepers, Ruth Fox, who shared her amazing story.
Yes.
So powerful. And, I know Ruth really, really well. So Ruth, if you're watching, hello. Hopefully have you for a session soon as well. And Georgia Stevens, who was somebody that me and Nelson come across from our experiences at UCFB. So again, Georgia, and also Amber, if you are watching or listening, hello to you guys. And as well, you were all of the girls there were really, really good, and some of the stories were really, really touching. But again, I think that TV show was just brilliant. you're getting an insight into people, into people's lives and people's stories. Obviously, I mentioned Ruth sharing her story, and it was quite interesting actually, because just before she went, I was just having a casual conversation with her, and she told me a little bit about what was going on, and I was almost a bit taken aback. I was like, what's going on here? And I was like, obviously it sounds really, really good, and was keeping in touch with her throughout the process of watching Ultimate Goal. But I absolutely love the TV show. I'm hoping that they bring out another one, and they do it soon, because I think the exposure that it gave again to the women's game was fantastic. Obviously, you've got some really, I would say, key people within the women's field, the women's game. Obviously, the twins, Rose and Millie Kamita, really, really strong presence in terms of media. You've got Eni Aluko, Centurion for England, Rachel Brown-Finnis, ex-England goalkeeper. You had Farrah Williams, again, somebody who's won over 100 caps for England. Jill Scott, who's played recently, again, has just got over 100 caps for England. Been around forever it seems, Jill Scott, but she's still going strong. And I just think the exposure that gave, obviously it was great it being at St George's Park, the home of England, almost the home of football, if you like, with some world-class facilities. But I just think that show in itself was absolutely brilliant. And like I say, I hope they bring out another series of it, because the first one was absolutely brilliant. And but then off the back of that, Nelson, as well, like, you're seeing these girls and you're seeing their stories and how good, and it's almost like, right, I want to say follow them on social media to kind of keep up with them and see their journey after the show. So I think as well, that in itself was really, really powerful, because like I say, off the back of it, you're wanting to see the progression of these girls, life after that TV show.
Exactly. You put that. That's why I let you explain it, because obviously I know you watched it more than me, but I could definitely recommend, after watching I think the first 3 or 4 episodes that I watched, it was thoroughly entertaining. Like you mentioned, the stories, I think that relatability on a human level was really important. I think that was a really touching and powerful kind of element throughout each episode, because it was kind of different. There was a different story each episode, so that was something that was really good. And Ruth, if you're watching, hello, powerful story, amazing, strong person. But 100%, we tell you to go watch Ultimate Goal if you can. And hopefully, they do release a second series. But that's what we were just expanding on, this exposure of this deal, the fact that this deal will do stuff like that. And we can't wait for what's up next. Anything else you wanted to add? Or
I think, Nelson, that wraps it up for today. So, guys, thank you ever so much for listening and watching.
Yes.
Our thoughts on women's football, as I mentioned, I'm not overly stacked, if you like, on women's football knowledge. I am learning as I go through my life, my coaching journey, and as well being a fan of football. As well, I might have to start switching allegiances from the men's Tottenham team to the women's team. It might give me less stress, and I might be able to save some grey hairs going forward. But I think the important thing is that we are having conversations like this regarding not only just football and sport in general, but the women's game as well, and giving it the rightful exposure that we feel that it needs. So, like I say, thank you ever so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. I know me and Nelson certainly did.
Yes, 100%.
Getting a conversation out there and a topic out there regarding women's football. Make sure you like this video on YouTube. Comment your thoughts if there's anything that potentially we missed on women's football. Like I say, we aren't pros on the women's game, so we are kind of learning on the job. So bear with us on that. And comment as well for any topics you would like us to cover in the future. Make sure you subscribe as well. We finally did it, people. We hit 100 subscribers on YouTube. Thank you ever so much for every 100 subscribers that we've had. Keep supporting. It means a lot to myself and Nelson as well. But keep showing us some love, and hopefully we will get some more subscribers and whatnot as well along the way. Don't forget to follow us on all social media platforms. That includes Spotify as well. So at WM32 Football for all of those. And don't forget, with the return of grassroots football less than a week away, you can get your own WM32 football merchandise for your next session. So guys, head over to our online shop to get yourself kitted out for the return of grassroots football. www.wm32football.com/shop for all of that as well. And we are taking bookings as well for sessions, for our individual sessions and our mini kicker session as well, in partnership with Willen Football Club based in Milton Keynes. So if you are watching and you would like a session, or if you are listening and you would like a session, please head over to the website, again, www.wm32football.com, and get yourself booked in. Right, Nelson, thank you ever so much for your time. Stay safe, and we'll hopefully see you all soon.
Thank you very much. Stay safe, everyone.